Well, I'm one of those people who believe that if you're hungry, food is actually more important than medicine. And we have about 800 million people on the face of this earth who go to bed hungry every night, which in my view is unacceptable. There are also many populations, many segments of the population, where the quality of the nutrients in the food is not so good. Vitamin A deficiency is a major problem. And so when you start to think about how one might tackle problems like this, you immediately come up with the idea that the modern methods of plant breeding, where instead of modifying plants and making genetic changes just by doing crosses or by radiation or mutagenesis, by using the modern techniques where we can precisely put genes into plant genomes and in that way increase yield, increase tolerance to pests, provide pesticide resistance, increase micronutrients. There are many, many possibilities here. But unfortunately, what has happened is that there has been a tremendous amount of misinformation and poor science sold to the public, thanks to a lot of anti-GMO movements. Very often NGOs, Greenpeace have been a major culprit here, in which they have persuaded a significant segment of many populations that somehow these modern techniques are dangerous. Now, the bottom line is that from all the science that's been done, and there's been a tremendous amount of science done in this area now, there is absolutely no reason to think that so-called GMOs are more dangerous than traditionally bred plants. In fact, if you actually look at it, traditionally bred plants look as though they should be more dangerous than GMOs. But unfortunately, one of the problems that arises is as soon as you begin to scare people and you tell them stories about how dangerous these things can be, people have been calling them frankenfoods. Once you get people scared, it is very difficult to then reassure them. And from my perspective, the Green parties, and notably Greenpeace, have done a tremendous disservice in the world. And you have to realize the reason they did it was because this was a way in Europe to stop Monsanto, or so they thought, to stop Monsanto and some of the other big agribusinesses from taking over the food supply. And this played out very well in Europe because, first of all, Europe doesn't need GMOs. You don't see a lot of thin Europeans walking around the streets unless they've just immigrated from Somalia. But on the whole, in the West, we do not need GMOs. And so if you begin a campaign in which you say, well, GMOs are dangerous, support me, we will stop it, you can raise a lot of money. And in fact, Greenpeace have an enormous annual budget now. It's something like 500 million euros a year. This has been incredibly successful for them. And so what they've done is not only have they convinced the Europeans that these are dangerous, but they've also started to go out into the developing world and convince them they're dangerous too, because it's difficult to make the argument that they're okay in the developing world, but they're dangerous in Europe. And so this is starting to spread. You have a number of activists here in India who have been causing major problems. And this is, I find it abhorrent that one would use bad science and would lie about science in order to spread misinformation and scare people, and in the case of many of these Green parties, just to raise money. So they always accuse the plant scientists of being in the hands of big business, and so you can't trust anything the plant scientists will say. And so some time ago, I started collecting some signatures from Nobel laureates, and at the end of July, we had a public announcement advertising that we were having a pro-GMO campaign. We now have 123 Nobel laureates who've signed on to this, and we're trying very hard to convince politicians, when necessary, and others around the world who are in a position of responsibility that what they're hearing from the Green parties is not true. What we would really like to do is to convince Greenpeace and others to just come out and say, I'm sorry, this is an issue that we got wrong, GMOs are okay, and then they can get on and do all the good work that they're capable of doing. Now, whether we can succeed in doing that, I don't know. But what we are trying to do is to use the fact that many people, including most of you in this audience, listen to what Nobel laureates have to say. You take our words a little more seriously than, say, some of the other people. I would also say that the laureates who are involved in this have no direct contacts with the agricultural industry. We're not being paid by Monsanto to do this. We're doing it because we are convinced that this is a way to try to get GMOs in the hands and to get these methods in the hands of the people who really need them. Now, fortunately, Prime Minister Modi is very pro-GMO. He recognizes what is possible here. He's very good, but unfortunately you have many people in the parliament here who don't feel quite the same way. And so again, here is an area where we need some grassroots movement in order to get things going. One of the things that's happened in India that is very encouraging is that BT cotton has been incredibly successful. It's been economically successful for the farmers. It's been economically successful for the country. And so here is a very simple gene-modified crop using modern methods that can serve as an example of what can be done. If you go to Bangladesh, you'll see that BT brinjal is now widely available in Bangladesh. It's also available in India, although it's all illegal. It's been smuggled in from Bangladesh. But again, the advantages of putting the pesticide in the plant rather than spraying it immediately offers advantages. Golden rice, which is something that I'm particularly fond of, this is a modified version of rice that produces beta-carotene. It was genetically modified a long time ago. And Greenpeace saw this as a great danger, and I think the reason they saw it as a great danger because here was something that was actually solving a problem. It's solving vitamin A deficiency, something which kills between 1 and 2 million children every year because they do not get enough vitamin A. This has now recently passed field trials in Bangladesh. I would say within a year or two, it's likely to be commercially available, provided appropriate legislation is passed. And this is an area where I think for India, this would be something very good if they could grasp this quickly and start growing it quickly. And we know of organizations that are in some of the states where rice is widely grown. Orissa is one state that immediately, I think you don't call it that, you call it Odisha now. But anyway, the name has changed, but it's in the eastern part of India. This is an area a lot of rice is grown, and this might be a case where they could raise the income level there as a result of growing this. This is a GM crop that has no patents associated with it if you're a small farmer, so there's no intellectual property barriers here. So I think there are many ways in which India not only can take advantage of some of these crops, the GM crops that have been grown elsewhere, but the nice thing is you can do your own. You have very good plant scientists here. You have many crops that are of interest where nutritional improvement could take place. You can do it all locally. Most of this stuff is not within IP control anymore. And so you can become independent of some of these very large seed manufacturers like Monsanto, who really don't have a lot of interest in the developing world because there's not enough profit to be made. So let them get on and do all the stuff they want to do in the developing world and take matters into your own hands. I think you can do it. I think many of the young people who will be listening to this are perfectly capable of making these genetic modifications, and our methods just get better and better all the time so that it will be easy to do. In fact, it probably won't be too long before individuals in their homes can do this and can modify some of the plants that they might need.
Thank you. It's an exciting challenge for the young scientists in the audience. Let's discuss this topic a little bit further.
Can I just make one remark? So we have a website that describes this. It's called supportprecisionagriculture.org. Not only does it list all of the laureates who've been associated with this, but there is an opportunity for people to sign on and join us and add your signatures to join our campaign. And I think one of the things that is really at the forefront of research at the moment is trying to understand the human microbiome, but also to understand other microbiomes. Every organism out there has bacteria living with it. The soil has bacteria, very important. But the human microbiome, the nice thing here is it depends very much on your diet as to exactly what kind of bacteria you have growing. And these bacteria are incredibly important. If we kill them off, you die. And so I think there are great opportunities here in India, but in many other countries. And we know we're going to learn a lot of really useful stuff that we had not expected.